I'm Johnny Rowland, and we're working on a new television program that I believe will have a positive and lasting effect on the shooting sports in our country, and hopefully will help to strengthen our rights as citizens to keep and bear arms. We propose to present the sporting and recreational uses of firearms with the express intent of making gun ownership more acceptable to the general public. And I don't think anyone would argue the need for such a program in the face of the current media onslaught against the National Rifle Association and gun ownership overall. We feel it is essential to produce an entertaining as well as informative program to be broadcast weekly on satellite, and since our company has over 20 years experience in the entertainment field, I believe our approach is reasonable. We aim not only to target our avid reloader and avid shooter, but also those millions of people out there who may not know much about firearms but would like to, including more and more women who are becoming concerned with personal protection. We'll feature many different aspects of shooting, including such things as competition, gun safety, basic instruction, hand loading, black powder shooting, gun tests, historical reenactments, air guns, police equipment, and conversations with firearms authorities and gunsmiths. We will also include country music footage from our other show to be played between shooting segments. One reason is to make our program more entertaining, and two is to identify the use and ownership of firearms with something else that is as American as mom and apple pie. A byproduct of including music is that we will have access to several well-known entertainers who enjoy the shooting sports. Now, our program is based on a low budget out of necessity, but at this point I feel it is more important to have interesting content and entertainment value rather than have the bells and whistles of fancy screen mechanics. We invite input and suggestions from friends and supporters, and will feature outside film footage of interest from other sources. One of the things I want to mention is we have a lot of very fine athletes in our sport, and we would like to give some of these athletes a bit of recognition that they genuinely deserve. We want to start our show on a grassroots base, and I feel this will help us build a strong format for the future, and this will do all of us involved in shooting and gun ownership a lot of good. If any of our prospective sponsors would like to work with us, we'll be more than happy to sit down and discuss our game plan with you. I hope that you like our concept. And here we are down on our range this afternoon on a beautiful January afternoon. It's about 75 degrees, and even here in Louisiana that's a little bit unusual, but it's a perfect time to do what we're going to do. Now, the reason we're here is we want to show how shooting can be both instructional and fun, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little fun. In the background we have some targets set up. We have 6 yellow steel targets and 3 paper targets, and I want to show that you don't have to have a lot of money invested to make a nice shooting range if you have a space available. On the paper targets, I simply made those from scrap lumber and pieces of cardboard, and especially scrap lumber because if I shoot down the frames, it's easy to remake them. And the yellow steel targets are disc off a disc plow that are no longer useful and were just laying around, a can of spray paint from your local discount store, and suddenly you have steel targets to shoot. Now, when we shoot steel targets, we always wear safety glasses. We always wear safety glasses whenever shooting, but it's especially critical on steel because there's always a chance of a lead bullet bouncing back. Now, it won't come very fast, but you certainly wouldn't want to get it in your eye. So let's shoot a little bit and have some fun. And what we're going to shoot today, this is a Smith & Wesson model 586 357 Magnum handgun with a 6-inch barrel. And you'll notice I've opened the cylinder. It's unloaded, and these are Safariland speed loaders. And what we have are 357 Magnum cases with a 158 grain cast lead bullet over 5.2 grains of Winchester AA 452 powder, and it's a nice recreational load. It's not too loud. You get a velocity of about 950 feet a second out of this gun, so you don't tear up the targets, and it's easy on your hands, and they're fun to shoot, and they're real cheap to make. I reload my own ammunition, and these cost about 6 cents a piece to reload. So that beats the heck out of $22 a box or so for factory ammunition. So we'll place it in the cylinder, line up 2 of the holes, and press, and it's loaded. And let's take time out from shooting just a moment and play a little music for you.
The kids are all gone, no place we have to go. I check the TV guide, there ain't even one good show. As I look at you, this thought occurs to me. Seems like years since we've loved the way that we should. It's a gift sent from heaven, and the timing's real good. Come sit beside me, let's take some time out for us. No little league. We're about to do one of the most fun things that I know of in shooting, and that is to shoot a black powder recreation. This happens to be a 50 caliber Thompson Center Hawken copy, and this is a very colorful gun to shoot and also to clean afterwards. But it's very effective on game. A lot of states now are having black powder hunting seasons, so let's go about shooting this old jewel here. Now, I've already placed some percussion caps on the nipple and already fired them to dry out the bore, because this gun's been in our living room and it's had oil and preservative in the barrel. That's the first thing we do. The next thing we do is I'll put the gun down right here in a safe position where it can't fall over. I have it braced here. And this is a powder flask, just like Davy Crockett used, or maybe something like, and this is a powder measure. Now you'll notice I have the powder in this flask rather than the can over there, because it's just a lot safer to deal with. Black powder is not as stable as smokeless powder, and you deal with it in preferably small amounts. I have the powder measure adjusted here for about 100 grains. So let's fill up the powder measure. Like so. And of course you got to spill a little bit. Wouldn't be fun if you couldn't make a mess. Alright, we're going to pour the powder down the barrel of the gun. We're going to take a 50 caliber. This happens to be a buffalo bullet. It's sort of a mini type bullet. It has an open base in it. We're going to start it down the barrel. I'll start it with my thumb. Then I'll take this little jewel right here, which is a starter, and start the ball down the barrel and push it on in. And now I'll take my ramrod and I'll finish seating the bullet all the way down on the powder. Now, one thing we never do, and that is put a cap on before we put the powder in the barrel. Finish with the powder and bullet before we ever put the cap on. Because if this thing went off in your face, well, it wouldn't be much left. We'll take the cap, and I'll ease the gun back on half cock, and I will gently lower the hammer and put it on safe. All right, now what we have a couple of 1-gallon water jugs over across the stream there, and shooting a water jug with any sort of gun proves absolutely nothing, but at least you know where your bullet struck. It's fun to do. Joe, why don't you tell us a little bit about your equipment and your leather and things. Go ahead.
First of all, welcome to Chico Gun Club. I'm Joe Tumanella. The gun I'm using today is a customized Clark Pinmaster in .45 caliber. My leather gear is Ernie Hill Speed Leather. Of course, magazines I'm using are stainless steel Wilson Roger 7-round magazines. And the ammo I use is my own particular hand load. It's a Hensley & Gibb bullet
And one thing we want to show is that shooting is a good, safe sport, as well as certainly an opportunity for a fun afternoon. And gentlemen, what would you say is one of the main things about safety and procedure in shooting?
Of course, most of the time when we run matches, we run a cold range, and that's it. Everybody, except for the shooter on the line, everyone has an empty gun with the hammers down on it. When we get ready, the range officer gives the command to the shooter on the line to load his weapon and make ready. And at that point, all the other shooters are behind him, and when he's loaded and ready, then the range officer gives the command for him to fire. The drill we're fixing to run is going to consist of the shooter's going to draw his weapon on command and fire 2 shots on each of the paper targets. Then he's going to reload and fire on each of the metal pepper poppers until the pepper poppers are all down. Shooter ready, stand by.
Good.
42.
Stand by. All right. 987.
Clear.
Shooter ready. Stand by.
This is a limited run that was made by Smith & Wesson in 1988. It's a 5-inch heavy underlug barrel 45 ACP revolver on an end frame with a round butt. The thing that makes it so fast is that you load all 6 rounds in a full moon clip, and they all go in at one time. They're all ejected at the same time. It's a pretty slick gun. I've enjoyed shooting it, and I like to shoot a revolver as well as a semi-auto, so it gives you the best of both worlds.
Good. And why don't we pause for just a moment and go back to the studio and play a little music.
Said that a good run is better than a bad stand. Well, you should get yourself in gear, 'cause tonight I'm calling your hand. You ain't walking like you're talking, baby. Oh, you've been living life. You've been living life. You ain't walking like you're talking, baby. You've been running around to no good. Well, so can I.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're here this afternoon with Mr. Harold Terry, who is the foremost firearms training expert, if I could say that, in our area. He's former Sheriff Harold Terry of Caddo Parish here in northwest Louisiana, and Harold has a wealth of knowledge and experience. In fact, I would consider Harold a doctorate of firearms training and usage. He's done all kinds of things, from going through the FBI Training Institute in Washington to Jeff Cooper's school in Paulden, Arizona, and the Chapman Academy. And Harold, why don't you tell us some of the things that stand out that you are rather proud of you have done?
Well, to go back into the time that I went into the Marine Corps, I was fortunate enough to shoot expert with the Garand rifle at that time, and fired the Browning automatic rifle and shot the highest in my regiment. And
today we're going to look at another revolver. We shot the Smith & Wesson 586 357 Magnum in an earlier piece, and this is the original 44 Magnum. This is a Smith & Wesson Model 29 with an 8 3/8 inch barrel in 44 Magnum. And this is a very, very fine handgun However, it probably wouldn't be a good first gun for someone who has not owned a gun before or has been shooting a 22 or something much smaller. Although, for someone who can handle it, it's a very, very fine handgun. It has ballistics out of this. And since we've been talking about the 44 Magnum handgun, let's mention the 44 Magnum carbine or rifle. A lot of people enjoy having a rifle or carbine in the same caliber as their favorite hunting handgun. In this case,
here we are at downtown Shreveport, Louisiana. We're at Britton's gun shop and also pawn shop, but primarily a gun shop. And we have Mr. Marty Britton here, who's a good friend of ours. And Marty's going to talk to us a little bit about a family-owned, family-operated gun store. Now, Marty, let me ask you a question. What's the advantage in someone buying from a dealer like yourself rather than from, say, one of the chain stores?
Well, of course, the one thing we hear when we talk to people that shop your discount stores is the price difference. We hadn't found that to be so for the most part. When they run advertised specials and things like that and closeouts, they are cheap. I'll shop there when they're that cheap. But as a general rule, we're not going to be out of line in prices on our guns, our ammunition, or any of our components. We've been here since 1955. And
here we are today in my reloading shed. And for those of us who do a good bit of shooting, reloading is absolutely essential. One, you get to experiment with different kinds of bullets and loads, but it's also much, much less expensive than buying factory ammunition. Plus, it's satisfying. And let's talk about rifles just a little bit. This is a Model 95 Mauser in 7mm Mauser caliber. And this was a military rifle. An important part of our program will involve teaching women to shoot and featuring women shooters. And here we have my lovely bride who's going to talk about one of her favorite handguns.
Well, Johnny, this is a Taurus PT99, and this is one of my favorite guns because it's easy to shoot and it has very low recoil. And it also has 15.
You know, we've only touched on so many of the projects we want to cover, and if any one of our sponsors would like to work with us, they can write to us at the Dixie Program, 554 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana. The zip is 71104. Our phone number is area 318-222-8515. We look forward to hearing from you.